In a distant and second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mists waver and part. See. Greater Tuin the turtle comes, swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge and ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rheum and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. In a brain bigger than a city, with geological slowness, he thinks only of the weight. Most of the weight is, of course, accounted for by Beryllia, Tubal, Great Typhon, and Jarrakeen, the 4 giant elephants upon whose broad and star-tanned shoulders the disk of the world rests, garlanded by the long waterfall at its vast circumference, and domed by the baby blue vault of heaven.
Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two we've read. I'm your host Scott, and I'm not alone. Sam's here too. This episode, we're talking about The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. It's a fairly spoiler-heavy episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on. I'll see you on the other side.
So there's like a I don't know if you've heard of the famous saying, like, there's one thing certain in life, death and taxes. But
yeah,
I'm going to add something to it. That the other thing that's certain is that you go to any charity shop in the UK, you are definitely going to be able to pick up about 10 Terry Pratchett books for like £1 each.
Yeah.
That guy must single-handedly be just supporting since I can remember.
Yeah. No, definitely. You say that, and if you walk in, you are right. You walk into one of those places, and then that's all you can see half the time. That and like old leather-bound books that you've got no idea what they are, like out-of-date Bibles or something.
A lot of Twilight and a lot of Terry Pratchett, I think. I guess he's very lucky. He's one of the few mass writers where the order doesn't quite matter.
Yeah,
it's not like, damn it, they've got book 10 and 8, but I don't know book 4 or 5.
There's a couple of, I think it's the only things that matter in order are like the group ones. So if you've got like the ones about the guards, the watch, they go in an order because they kind of evolve between each book.
Right.
So you kind of have to, if you're going to read a set of books, you have to read those in order, but otherwise, it doesn't really matter.
Will you be missing something if you don't, or it's just nice to see the progression?
You can miss stuff.
Oh, okay, you want to max it out.
Yeah, the witch books with Tiffany Aching, you can't read them out of order because you sort of see her start out as being found to be wanting to be a witch, then you see her leveling up in each book to like the next stage. So there is like a flow there. You can't read those out of order.
Is that like Hatful of Sky? And that series of books. Yeah. They always, just from what I've seen, they always seemed like out of Discworld. I don't know why. I don't know if they never got the traditional covers, like the cover art changed for her.
After I think it was the artist they changed the artist over after a certain amount of time. I don't know why, or if
just
I don't know enough why. I know that all I know is they have the old style, like the really funny squiggy ones, where they all look like Middle Eastern with the shoes and
Who's that artist you would know? Frank Canelli, the very famous sword and sorcery artist who's just famous for so much you'd recognize. Just that really ripped muscles are muscles, the dogs are muscled, the women are muscly, like really over the top.
That does ring a bell, sorcery.
It's kind of a play on that, I guess, but somehow all these covers are like muscly. They're sort of like I don't know. There's something quite grotesque about them. Yeah, I think so, huh?
Like the faces, they're all like really, I don't know, it's almost medieval, but mixed with something else. It's very weird.
No one's handsome. Everyone's got like warty noses.
Even the women, none of them. They haven't got like really feminine women and really ugly men. They're all quite grotesque and over
gnarled up.
Yeah, which is weird. And then I think it's Jack Kirby does the newer style.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. I think because I don't know when he started doing that, but I know there's the Art of Terry Pratchett. It's like a big, like a big book.
I think I
That's,
had that once. I think that was quite
hardback.
cool.
Yeah, I've got that. I think somewhere in the other room,
Mm.
and that's all his Jack Kirby's artwork and stuff around the characters.
Nice.
So a bit more consistent.
It's always odd for me with Discworld. I read a couple when I was in school, but I sort of found the idea more appealing than what I was reading. Weirdly for me, like it always seemed an odd marketable one because it was like hard fantasy satire in the style of a kid's book, but I kind of felt like it was more for adults, I suppose. I mean, I don't think it's true because a lot of kids did like it.
Yeah, a lot of kids did like it because I think because of the humor, but there is a lot there. I'd say you could go from teenagers up. There's definitely a lot in there, and I found it quite fun reading like the later books when you start seeing where they've basically introduced the internet, but they've done it in a Terry Pratchett way where it's
nice.
done with
That seems like a good theme of his. Like take something simple, and how does it affect this world of buffoonery? Is it going postal when it's just something as simple as
where
they
post
service and it's just mayhem in this world? It's almost it's
those
not
books.
quite
I think
as...
there's 3 of those. There's 2 or 3 of those with that guy where it starts off with the post office, and then I think in the next one they start introducing like email, but it's like something completely different.
Oh, okay. They get eradicated. Like in our world, it's like here's post, and now you're being eradicated by the next form.
Something like that. Or if I remember, but I know that there's definitely one like that, and they set it up in. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually, it could be. I know that it's a bit like the book we just read, where there's all this magic, and Rincewind constantly says there must be something better, like explanation, like that, basically like we've got, where everything makes sense.
Right.
With like atoms, power. I just assume it would come from somewhere like molecules. I mean, he basically does like a really
behind it.
he basically does an actual like a physics description of what actually happened. Then he goes, no, it's much more boring than that. It's just magic.
Oh no, but at least it wasn't like some midi-chlorians line or something.
Yeah, but it's just, I like that, like you said, the satire and stuff. But they do the same with the internet, I think, where or the post where they talk about it like how it would actually be, and they go, oh no, it's more complex than that. It's got like 5,000 goblins that are in little boxes that
right. They do it. I guess they do stuff the hard way. I guess we see something in this of like it's easier to have a little gremlin in a box to paint you a picture than to figure out the photograph. Like, everything's done by hand. It's not
that was what it was.
But,
that was what it was. His things. I thought, I don't know, like the light would interact with some phosphorus paper or something. And it's like, well, that's what actually happens, isn't it? But it's,
and they sort of have a, don't be silly. It's a little man in a box.
Yeah. Of course it is.
It sort of always reminds me of I guess Alice in Wonderland. Like I haven't actually read that many of these. I think I've read the first 8. I've read up to like half of Soul Music, I think, and then I lost my copy.
Yeah.
But I guess it always reminded me of Alice in Wonderland when they, like moving pictures, for example, when they try to create Hollywood of like, this is just a sort of a world of lunacy.
Yeah.
And every time they sort of try to bring in something, it starts off with order, but it just doesn't fit in this world. Like it's just an absurd world, I think.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right, I think. That's how you go. It was I think the first few, again, like you said, you can read them out of order because they're so random, like that one. That doesn't matter where you read that one or Soul Music, any of those, they don't really matter. There's I think it's Mort is a single book as well. I don't really think it matters if you read any of the others after that or before that.
It's sort of solo adventures in their world, or the world building.
Yeah.
So it all starts with The Color of Magic. Now you're like a huge Pratchett fan, and I've met quite a few, and you all say the same thing. You can skip that one. You don't need to start there. Start later.
Yeah, it was. I did start there as well, but I remember reading it, getting to the end, and going, "Oh, okay, so you have to read the next one because the first 2 it is a 2-parter."
It is.
So it ends on a cliffhanger.
Going through their process at the time of writing this. It's not that it feels rushed, but it's almost like he had these short stories that were combined and someone took a punt on it or something. I don't know, really. I don't know if it came down to... I wonder if like the publishers were like, we're taking a punt on this. You know what, listener, just maybe I will do a lot more research for the follow-up, the color of... No, The Light Fantastic.
Light Fantastic,
I assume this came out after Hitchhiker's Guide?
I think so. I can't. Was this? I can't remember if he started. If the books were started in the 80s or right at the beginning of the 90s. I feel like it. I feel like it was like 1988 or something.
But I guess
Whereas
the radio
Hitchhiker's
show,
Guide is older than that, isn't it?
the radio show at least would have come out way
Mm.
before, and it does
Yeah.
feel like he's sort of, whereas Douglas Adams was the sci-fi, sarky, absurdism.
Yeah.
This is the fantasy side of it. I
Yeah.
think there's a scene in this book where it almost feels like he's paying a little homage to Adams and addressing it, where he like falls from the sky and he'd sort of like the random possibility generator, like Rincewind ends up in an airplane in our world, just a break of four, and he's just sort of sitting in an airplane wondering what's going on, looking at, smartly dressed people.
I do remember the first time I read that, my mind wandered while I was reading it. Like when I first read it, my mind wandered at that bit. And when I went back and suddenly remembered what I was doing, I was like, "What the fuck? What am I reading?" Because it changed from that to that, and I had to go back a few pages just to understand what had happened because I'd missed it.
Yeah, it's like there's quite a few, I guess, jokes and payoff jokes where it's a kind of a blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah.
Like, although plot-wise it's fairly light, you still have to sort of read with some concentration to get the yuck yucks payoff, because they sort of come and go. There's a bit, but there's not a lot of like early seeding that then pays off later in the book, as far as I know.
Some of the the one-off lines where they go, when they talk about the River Ankh, and just like how you wouldn't drink from it, you wouldn't go into it, you'd never come out alive because of how disgusting it is, it's like a rip. It's basically talking about the River Thames. It's the same sort of thing. They're just saying it's so polluted that you could practically walk on it. So they'll mention it, then they'll say that, and that's the one line. But I don't know if you ever played the point and click games.
Loosely.
Discworld.
I was never good at those.
No.
So I remember as a kid, I believe coming to your house, and it was more fun to me to just watch you play it, really, because it's just that thing of like years and years later in my late teens, when I had a PlayStation and I found the copy, I was like, I remember this, I'm going to give it a go. Just not having the patience to explore, just like, you know what, I just want to watch someone else. I want to watch a cartoon.
Yeah. I do know what you mean. It's one of those, if you can slowly make connections and know what you're looking for, it's good fun when it's slowing you down just enough to keep you interested. But when you get stuck that you're sat there for like half an hour, it can get a little bit.
Yeah, that's when I'll start just Googling it. I just don't like a shooty I can get stuck on, because you're sort of in the action figuring it out whilst doing something. Yeah. But my days of those games have long since passed. I think I had of the LucasArts games like Full Throttle on my iPad.
Yeah.
And, I just got stuck and I stopped.
Yeah,
I think the same with the Day of Tentacles.
Day of Tentacles was great, but the Discworld games, I think I only played the second one, which was in a really cartoony drawn style.
That's what I remember.
I think eventually I completed it. I think I played it like 2 years later, but that again's got all the little jokes in there, and you've got Eric Idle doing the voice for Rincewind, and
nice.
It's after reading a bunch of the books, I realized just how many books were mashed into that point and click, because
so they did it lovely, like they got fans. There's definitely it seemed like that each section you go through it is like part from another book. So they mention a whole bunch of stuff when you're in like the beginning in Ankh-Morpork, and there's again with the river. You go in and he says, "Yeah, would you like a drink of water?" And he goes, "What, from the River Ankh?" He goes, "Yeah, it's nice and cool. Would you like me to cut you a slice?" It's like little jokes like that, but there's like they were harkening back. But you see a few of the Watch members in that, so you know that obviously it was made after the Watch books were done. There's a section later where you're having to make a film for the Clickies, because Death's got blown up and basically has gone away in the game. He's just disappeared. He's gone and retired for a bit, which also goes back to like soul music, where he stops doing what he's doing. So there's bits like that in it, and they're making a film like in the motion picture book. So it's they've got lots of stuff in there like that. Nice. So for anyone who doesn't know, like, this is just in case you're just a fan of the show but you don't really know what we're talking about. Terry Pratchett's like a fantasy writer who wrote nigh on 40 maybe. I think it's in this series, all set in this sort of fantastical world. The Great Atuin is like a giant turtle that swims through space. On his or her back, there's 4 turtles who are just sort of stood in a circle. On top of them fellas is a big flat world, which is the Discworld, hence the name, the Discworld novels. And I would say it's all about magic, but it's very, there's like a magic system, I'd say, that ties all the books together. Like almost the geographical side of the novel is what brings the entire series into a connection. You'll get characters come and go. There are favorites who, like, for example, there's a librarian who I just watched the Color Magic Sky TV show last night.
Yeah.
And I think they took some elements from the next book. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm talking about stuff that's in the next book.
Yeah.
Because they're blurred all together.
I don't think he doesn't appear in the first book.
No, right. But he
does appear in the next one. And yeah, the Color of Magic, the TV show that they did, was both books. It did do the whole, because it kind of, they couldn't have done a show and stopped it on a cliffhanger without.
Like I mean, they sort of did, because I watched episode 1, which is almost 2 hours, and that ends with the book. But for example, they had to bring stuff forward, they've had to cut stuff out. But so just to give you a summary of this book, listener, I guess there's two key-ish elements. Is that one, a flailing wizard in the university called Rincewind is sort of kicked out for just being a bit useless. And there's like a tourist who comes to Ankh-Morpork, which is like, I guess, the capital of the Discworld, or it's just a very vibrant, raggedy city.
It's the capital of that area of the Disc. It's what it is. It's weird. I always pictured Ankh-Morpork like being a bit like London, but the way they talk about it in there, they talk about it like it isn't. Like it's almost like the Middle East, the way they talk about it. It's kind of weird. And then, like you said, the tourist that comes along, the way they do it and the way they say, oh, he's got a weird dialect, and it's because he's American.
Oh, okay, right.
That's what they did with the accent and stuff. Because you saw in the show, Two-Flower, that you saw in the show that he speaks differently, and but he's an American actor doing it. But if you listen to the audiobooks,
fun way to get around it, right? Because I believe in the book, he just has his own language, and Rincewind can speak that language. So throughout the book, mostly it's just those two communicating.
Yeah, mostly.
Right? But I feel like that fades out towards the end. Like in the TV show, it turns out he's pretending to. He's like this really naive, trusting, fun-loving tourist who's just kind of dorky. And it turns out he's like a millionaire in this city. And he doesn't really know the value of money. He's just giving out gold coins like crazy, because to him it's less.
Yeah.
And but the absolutely beloved trunk, which is literally like a big old gold treasure chest with thousands of legs. Luggage, just the word. And they say it's completely unthinking and sentient, but it will kind of protect its master. But they do give it attitude. They do give it pluck.
Yeah. They do. It just doesn't have eyes. The amount of times they say it doesn't have eyes, yet you can see that it's peering at you or leering at you.
And I think the show does a good way of showing it. I guess just imagine like a dog with no head. Like it. Yeah. I don't know. I thought they did it well to just give it its own character.
It kind of reminds me of if you played Dark Souls, they've got the treasure chests in that occasionally you'll do it and it grows legs and it tries to eat you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it grows really long legs. I can't remember what they're called. Mimics. It's kind of like a mimic. It's kind of like that, except it really isn't. The way they describe it, it's not the same thing, but it seems like that's where the idea came from.
But so the sort of magic board basically tell Rincewinds, like, look after this tourist.
Oh, the veterinary from he's like the it's like in charge of the city.
Of the university. I get a bit.
Yeah, no, the university don't seem to care or do anything in most of the books. I think they talk about it saying that most of the time they just try and do magic or sleep or basically do nothing. He gets pulled in by veterinary, who's the ruler of the city,
like
but he's
mayor,
also
governor, whatever.
He's definitely a ruler. I don't know how they kind of do it, but he's in that position, and he's in it for a long time. And I don't think in this book, but you find out in other books, he used to be like head of the Assassins Guild, and he was just particularly good at that. And now he's in charge, but he's quite a fair but quite a shrewd man as well. So
stern but fair.
Yeah, he knows, he's quite clever. He's very clever, and he knows when somebody might come in handy later. And it's quite good with his threats that aren't really threats, they're more promises.
Is it when he says something like you won't betray me, will you, Rincewind? And he's like, no, I wouldn't dare. It's like, well, you should sue your face for slander, because it's looking like the face of someone who's going to turn his back on me.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And so, kind of unwillingly, Rincewind is just Two Flowers' guide on this trip, and then the book's breaking up into one, two, three, I guess 4 sections from here. Like, we get this intro, we get like an adventure in at Morpork, and then we move to the next one, and it's quite a episodical book. Each adventure kind of starts and
definitely
ends.
Some sort of it's very like much a journey, isn't it? They go, but they have done it in a very obvious way of starting the city, then they've moved here, then they're here, then they're here.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't know if it's sort of a play on like the old sword and sorcery novels, like the Conan's, where it's like
I think
if you're reading
be.
this as short stories, that's sort of how it works. Like you can just read this section to an extent, and the characters just go on and go on and go on. But
yeah, they do lead in together. But you're right, you could sort of stop there and leave it there and go, right, they've moved on to the next bit. But you're
like
right.
At one point, I wonder if it was just going to be, there was a thinking of like, that's what this is going to be. The next book will be another 4 adventures, and so on and so on and so on, depending on how popular and what the writer wants.
It would be interesting to look up and see if he had like the world pretty much mapped out before he wrote the book. So he kind of knew what was going on here, there, and everywhere.
I've definitely heard him say that he has been anti making a map, like a physical map, purely because he doesn't want to catch himself out, and purely because it's sort of like this world is absurdist, and he doesn't like it was never his intention to get too caught up in the wrong detail. So when he was doing like the art of stuff, I think there's probably maps of the city, and like here's this street, but of the whole Discworld.
I see what you mean. It's kind of been built as he's written the books. As it's gone along, it's sort of invented itself as it's gone along.
Yeah, things can come and go, I think. I mean, correct if I'm wrong, do we ever go does Two Flower ever come back after these sets of books, and do we visit his world?
I don't think he does. Well, we see his world in these books, but I can't remember if they go back, if they ever visit that place again in any of the other books, or if you see any of it. I think the bulk of it is in one area usually. I think is it I was gonna say Django, then it's not Django. There's one like that where it's got a weird name and it's set somewhere completely different.
Oh, Jingoism.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's just called Jingo. Actually, you think you're right. It's probably why I got confused. Django, no, that's a completely different thing. That one's like and Pyramids, I think, is another book that goes completely elsewhere.
That's the one I owned as a kid.
Oh, Pyramids.
And it sat on my shelf until about 5 years ago when I finally read it. Because like I said, I actually found them quite hard to read as a kid. I mean, I was quite an immature reader maybe, and it was just like, okay, there's some
I wouldn't think
but
so.
The story
they are hard.
Weirdly, I mean, I don't know. I feel like
you can see why they're fun, but I guess as an adult, you can see all the little jokes. You can understand everything a bit better. As a kid, I think there's a lot in there that you'd go straight over your head, which means you probably would just get a bit lost.
Yeah, and with my problem with this style of storytelling is there's like zero fear for anyone. Like I don't really have any faith anyone's not going to make it out of the book. There's no sense of urgency. Like everything, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have everything undercut with a joke, but like pretty much all of Rincewind's dialogue is sort of hilarious, but then like four of kind of the same-ish chapters in, it's like, okay, like death's after him, and I wouldn't say we're recycling the jokes, but maybe that's why it's split into 2, or maybe that's why the second one, I believe, is it's been a long time since I read it. We'll have to find out next episode, like has a different feel to it.
Yeah, to be fair,
we'll have to do it next episode.
it's definitely. It's been a while since I had again having to re-listen to this one just to remember half of what happened in it. And like what you were saying before about the some of the there's definitely I think later books, like I said, the ones where you have like 5 or 6, like with the Watch or the Witches in it, you do wonder who is gonna, if any of them, if they're all gonna get through it, or if anyone's gonna disappear or at some point. So those ones have a little bit more of that wondering what's gonna happen. Whereas, yeah, like you say, the earlier ones, not so much. But again, I don't think that's what they were about.
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I guess something I noticed that was missing from the Sky one, I guess, to just give it some sense of a villain and direction. Like in the books, there's like a play on the Greek gods. They're very often we cut to literally people in the clouds, quite, I don't know, haphazardly, quite lazily, just like betting on them, like just playing games with them. Like this god
Was that
is
on the show?
betting. Mm-mm.
I
Well,
know it was
in
in
the
the
episode I
book.
saw, that I think it's completely cut out. Like it's more about the like the wizards. I think stuff we find out in the second book is stronger in the TV shows of the first episode to give it more of a, just a, I guess, a straight thread for a threat. Like I
I
said,
see what
there's
you mean.
no
Yeah,
clear vision.
yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas, like you say, in the book, there is it Fate who's trying to win and just wants to get rid of them.
I guess there's a lot of forces working against them.
Yeah, and then was it Lady Luck, but nobody says her name because it's not good luck to say it. They just call her the Lady. Nothing
Yeah.
else. Don't say anything else.
I must admit, like it was really fun reading it back again. But
Mm.
even for a short book, I love the first scenes in Ankh-Morpork. Like it's such a vibrant, busy city. It sort of
Yeah,
reminds me of being a kid watching Star Wars with those Mos Eisley scenes and the cantina
yeah,
and just this world you want to just, can we just stay here for a bit and explore? Like this is such a fun place.
yeah.
And then we're moving off. And then
I think that's why the later books are probably a little bit more interesting or more liked, because most of them are set in Ankh-Morpork, and the majority of it is in those areas of things. So when it is set there, they don't generally move away from it very much.
right. Because this one moves then to the Wirral.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
there's like a
Was it what's it called? The worm something. But
like
yeah, with the dragons
basically
and all
there's
that stuff.
dragons that only exist if you believe in them.
Yeah, because of the dead. If they basically
Yeah,
talk about it like a nuclear bomb hit there, but it was magic, like a
like a magic.
nuclear
Yeah, and
magic bomb.
I guess that the magic system's really fun in this.
Hmm.
Like you get the sense that magic is kind of alive. Like each spell is its own living thing,
Yeah,
and if you learn a spell, it's like that spell goes to live in your head.
yeah,
Which is a really fun thing because I think a running theme of Rincewind is he has a really powerful spell in his head and he doesn't know what it is or how it got there. Like he just accidentally
yeah.
read it. It's kind of been puppeteering him a bit.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be more
That's
of it in
why
the next book.
that's why
This is
he's
why
been so
death can't
useless at
catch him. I
magic, isn't
think
he?
every time he's on the edge of dying, death as a character literally sort of sidles up to him and he sort of manages to escape time and time again. I know a lot of people love Terry Pratchett's rendition of death. I know at some interviews he said he gets like
Yeah,
mail saying like, "I hope when it's my time to go, like your death comes to get me."
yeah,
And I was thinking, it was strange for me because I feel like growing up, late 80s to 90s, most of my visual interpretations of death were the more plucky, not necessarily plucky, but like I was too young for this growing up watching The Seventh Seal and like the serious renditions of death.
Hmm.
So for me, all interpretations of death have been like Neil Gaiman's death and Terry Pratchett's death and Bill and Ted's rendition of death, who are like
yeah,
surprisingly fun. They're like a play on what we expect death to be. But
yeah,
then I think we're in the generation where like that's what we expect death to be. And now I would be more not compelled, but if a book did a really serious dark death, it would be more
yeah,
I don't think I've ever read anyone where it was just the typical Seventh Seal death, particularly.
yeah. Although if the ones that do, I think that kind of character can be fairly boring because it's usually very straight. So it would need, usually for it to have any sort of weight, it needs to be a contrast to everybody else a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
guess often in death and in books, it's more of like a framing narrative
Mm.
for like the POV. I think what's it called, the book thief. This is sort of set in
Yes.
like Nazi Germany about like a young German, and it's like it's sort of framed from Death's point of view. I think like visiting her
Mm.
during key moments of her life when someone dies, but we don't really
Mm.
get to know Death as per se. It's not a personified entity or person or something.
Yeah.
And so after the Dragon World, like we basically close that adventure off, and we go to like Kohan's world. I don't know how you pronounce it. You've been listening to the audiobook. It's just pronounced Cohen, but it's spelled.
Oh, Cohen, yeah.
It's pronounced Cohen.
Cohen the Barbarian, that's such an obvious Conan, isn't it? But I like the fact that whenever they see a barbarian, he's like, you can see them trying to think, and he's like he's an intellect where they're considered because in that he can actually string 3 words together to form a sentence.
They're I guess barbarians in a very heavy literal sense.
Yeah, I think they talk about how thick and stupid they are, but a lot of them seem to just survive because of the fact that they're barbarians. They just sort of do what they do. It's like, this is my job. I kill things and get money and save maidens from themselves. That's pretty much about. I think that's it. That's kind of how it goes. I think, is it the next book? There is a book where maybe it's not Cohen, and it was Cohen in this book, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's another one where they meet a barbarian, and he's about 100 years old, and he is an intellect in that he's like on the same level as Rincewind in terms of like brain power. He's just smart, and I guess he's like everyday smart. But it's possibly because he's lived so long, he's actually managed to learn something.
Is it just an anomaly in the world?
Yeah,
it's like the talking gremlin from Gremlins 2.
Yes, yeah, but he's still going as a barbarian. He's still like breaking into stuff and stealing gold and stuff like that. I can't remember which book that was from. I don't think it was the first 2, but I'm sure it was. But I remember reading it and just thinking it was quite funny because it was completely different.
I guess because this is around where I start feeling in the book that I don't know, characters are just coming and going for the scene and leaving, and there's always this sense of like, oh, what's around the corner, but I'm sort of not invested, but like, I don't know, it's tricky when you're just there for the gags.
Yeah,
like it's because it was quite clever how they got out of their scrapes, but it never was like, oh god, how are they going to get out of this one? It was always like, ha, that was funny, like a really, I don't know, comical way of Rincewind. I guess Rincewind's always on the run, and Two Flowers always walking forward with a camera, like just thinking everything's a tourist. I honestly don't know if he was a bit of a play on. I don't know. I feel like there's been times when you're a tourist, you sort of feel like the rules don't apply to you a bit. Like if there's if there's ever any trouble, you just go, I'm not really from here. You guys do your thing. I'm just going to step back. Like you sort of can have a weird haze of like, I'm from abroad protection, I feel.
Yeah, possibly. And again, thinking of when this one was written, which I'm sure it has to be like the late 80s or something. He wrote this book, but I think there was more onus on tourists. Were more unaware of themselves because I don't think it was. It just you could just picture that kind of tourist.
You should be horrified now about the 2020 mids.
Yeah.
So I did find, I felt that with each chapter passing, I was just less and less into what was going on. Just a little bit more, like the Conan one, for example. I don't know if it kind of felt stretched out for such a short chapter. Like the whole thing is very short. You could probably, I don't know how long the audiobook is. It must be like 6 hours, maybe max. I don't know. It can't be very long.
Thing. I can't remember how long it was in total, but I think you're probably about right. Might definitely something like that. It was I will say, listening to it on an audiobook is more fun than trying to read it.
Who's the narrator?
I can't remember his name. He's the guy who played Merlin in the TV show Merlin.
Oh, cracking, no idea. Like he a young guy though?
Yeah, I say young. He's got to be a little bit older than us.
Oh, okay.
Our age between our age and
like
50.
A young show. It was like the Robin Hood, like he was a young.
Yeah, well, he was young in it, but it was about 20 years ago it was filmed.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. I always thought it was the guy who was Neil from The Young Ones who did the audiobooks.
Oh, he did the older audiobooks or some of them. I did like his ones. They were
Oh,
good
they've
because he does all the
voices.
voices. Yeah. And it's funny with
Nigel
those
Planer.
ones because yes, that's it. Because
Mm.
he did some of the earlier ones that I listened to with the witches in it. And there's one of the witches I think is called Magrat. And when he does her voice, he basically is doing Neil's voice from the young ones.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, oh, well,
Oh,
it's quite funny because the second he does it, like I recognize that voice
yeah,
immediately.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they've had some re-recorded, but I think it's the other ones were recorded through a company, and these ones are the Puffin ones. I think they're done for.
Oh, okay.
And
Like he's done
it's
the whole
weird though
lot.
because
The Merlin guy.
I think he's done quite a few. They're the ones that you can listen to on Spotify if you've got a premium account.
Oh, okay, nice.
But I found I could only listen to them on my phone. I had to purchase them if I wanted to listen to them on my computer, which was weird. So I guess you get them for
Oh,
free on
okay.
your
Just
phone, but not.
Spotify. Either bugs
Yeah,
or benefits or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. But it's good. There's a few. I didn't realize they did audio books, so I was like, oh, okay, well, because was it with Amazon? I had like a month free, like 4 years ago. I did like all the Harry Potter books through that when I was driving to and from work,
Oh,
which
nice.
was
Like the daily commute travel.
yeah.
Yeah.
I quite like reading a book and then maybe listening to it again later down the line.
Yeah,
It's
that's more
quite
my
nice.
my journey with audiobooks. I find it very hard to just read a book I don't know anything about, like audiobook something. I guess because
Yeah.
I can never sit there with an audiobook.
No,
Um,
it's
I
kind of
guess my
weird. I know what you
mind
mean.
wanders more.
Yeah.
Like when your mind wanders when you're reading a book, you can very easily skip back. You basically stop reading if it gets too intense, the mind wandering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you sort of don't miss stuff, or you can very easily go back a page and go, what was that?
Yeah.
I zoned out there. Whereas an audiobook just keeps going
Yeah.
and
I think the
potentially,
good thing with this is you can at least tap back. There's a button that goes back 15 seconds or something. So you can push that a few
right,
times to
right,
turn
right.
back. But I do
But
know what
like
you mean.
if
It
you're at
is
work,
easier to wander and you don't realize you're wandering because you're not physically holding a book and then go, oh, you sort of
yeah,
go,
because you can literally
what?
multitask with that.
Yeah. And then you realize he's not taking anything in. So I
Mm.
have tried listening to stuff when I'm doing other stuff, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If that right. Whereas if you know the story, not necessarily
Yeah.
intimately, but you've read it before and you know the gist, even if it's a few years ago. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you're happy
It's
to
quite
like,
nice.
yeah, I zoned out for like an hour, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have done that. I would have zoned out for far too long and gone, hang on a minute. I think I've got to go back an entire like track. No,
Yeah.
not even just 10 seconds,
Yeah,
like a
that's where
full
I get
10
it all
minutes.
messy. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
think I've gone way back now, and then I just start jumping randomly. I'm like, oh God, it's like a
Yeah.
10-hour
You have to listen
timeline
to the
and I'm
same thing
completely
again.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. At least with a book, you can just go, right. Well, I know I've turned the page twice, so I can go back 2 pages and I'm sorted.
Right, right,
It is
right.
easier, isn't it? Yeah, you're all right about that. We were talking about the what's his face?
Jack Kirby.
No, Two Flower. We were talking about,
Oh, right.
and I was wrong. It wasn't Jack Kirby. It's Paul Kidby. That's who does the art for the books now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, Jack Kirby's a Marvel comic guy, I think, or something
Oh, okay.
like
Yeah, the
that.
name rings a bell. Is
Yeah,
he
that's
Bob
why I
Crane
said
or
the name
something
and
like
was
that?
like,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was correct. But they're in the dug out the art of Discworld just to check, just to have a quick look.
Mm.
But it's actually there's writing in there. So you'll see the drawings from Paul Kidby, but all the writing I think is from Terry Pratchett. So he kind of there's a bit there that
Oh, so he
explained the first book. So he wrote against these characters what he was thinking about certain characters, and
mm,
then you've just got Paul Kidby's sketches on the
like
same page.
interpretation. Mm.
Yeah, of the character. Um, and there was like a bit there talking about why he did Two Flower because the Discworld began, he said, as a genuine tourist trap. He wanted the journey through a familiar fantasy world where the people didn't stay in character, where barbarian heroes could be old men, wizards could run away, and death could hold a conversation.
Nice.
So that's the idea of kind of behind the book. He said a
Mm.
tourist seemed, so I think the reason he said a tourist seemed like a good idea, especially if he believed in heroes and wizards. So the first book is more of that's why they jump around so much, I think, is because it's supposed to be like a tour of this world
Right,
through the
right.
tourist's eyes a little bit, but with
Hmm.
around a story. So it kind of makes a bit more sense.
I mean, it's certainly common. I don't
Yeah.
think trope is the right word, but to have uh one of your central characters as a naive person, not from a world,
Yeah.
so that people explain to him, and we get the explanation. And I guess
Yeah.
he's coming from our point of view, even though he's an alien to us, really. He still knows, like, the barbarian heroes
Yeah.
as we experience them. Like,
He's heard the stories. He hasn't
Right,
seen them
right,
in
right.
person, and yeah.
he's more our POV and his own.
Yeah. Yes, that's the idea, I think, behind the first book, and that might be why the second book is a little, maybe it's, I can't remember, but if it seemed like it on the show that it was slightly less like it, that might be why. So yeah, then dotting around the globe kind of makes a little bit more sense that way. He also said it was yeah, so hence Toofloud, perennially optimistic, generous, good-natured, and a firm believer that there is something good in everyone. And most of the people he meets, on the other hand, believe that if somebody has something good, then they should steal it.
Yeah, it's a very cutthroat world he's created, for sure.
Yeah, but like you say, he's so that character is, like you say, so just oblivious to anything and just thinks, oh, this is all good fun, and yeah, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. Just carry on.
Like, I do really like him as a character. Like, I'm sort of surprised the audience, not the fan base is that, you know, you can skip the first one and blah blah blah. The characters aren't great. Like, I feel like the character growth isn't great. We end up with pretty much everyone exactly where they left off.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, no one learns
sense.
a lesson. No, like,
No.
Toofloud isn't. There's no. You know, I don't think there's any heart to the base of this story. Is what's missing for me.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it needs some tragic story or
No.
something, but just even a couple of paragraphs about just something to give our journey some heart.
Yeah.
Because it's just characters perpetually escaping death's clutches,
Yeah,
but
I
always
guess
being in peril at the
it is
same
kind of
time.
like
So
you said with the old fantasy
sword and
stories
sorcery,
and
yeah.
oh yeah, they go through it, they all come out the other side. It's that kind of, say, Indiana Jones
we're sort of
thing.
not looking for growth, I suppose. It's like serial TV
Yeah,
of
and
the older year.
after reading that, it makes sense that if it's just supposed to be like a tour, I guess was the bulk of it, and then the comedy and the story were just sort of ways to move that forward. It makes sense. But then I think that's probably why a lot of people don't like the first book as much as the later books, because the later books do develop a lot more, and then it's more story driven where there is development.
Right.
So that's probably why people say, oh, just ignore the first one or two, because they're not even relevant to the rest of the books. That really is one you can just take it or leave it.
Yeah, I guess it's always odd for me. And you know, I'm guessing if you're getting into these, there's a good chance you're a big fantasy fan, and it's always a conundrum I have when I discover a book that's a fantasy. Like, oh God, I really want to read this book. Oh, what? It's book 5. I really want to read this one. I just can't. I don't have it in me to just read this book. Okay, and now I have to buy 5 other books. Oh, and there's a prequel. Should I read that first? And now there's the one book I wanted to read is suddenly 10,000 pages away before I can even start that. So it's very hard. I guess this is a prime example of where, like,
I do understand that you almost think, am I missing out on any information, which is why.
Yeah, or just
yeah.
It's sort of nice to know where it started. It's like when someone says, "Oh, have you seen this sitcom? It's really good. You can skip season 1 and 2," and you think, "But I'm not going to." You know what I mean? It's like I just
I don't think I couldn't do that. I could never with that kind of thing. I wouldn't be able to miss it. If there was, I think if I had a definitive, like with books, if somebody said, "Well, book 5 is fine to start from because everything that happens in the other books has no relevance after that point," like absolutely none, then it wouldn't matter so much. But then you'd have to believe them and be okay with that, which might, in hindsight, if I was like, yeah, I'd quite happily leave that book, but thinking about it, if I didn't already know that for myself, I don't think I'd be able to do that either.
I feel like you're a story collector. I remember us being young, and you back bought one of the Tekken games because you wanted to know the story. You, like, if you complete the game with each character, you get a tiny cutscene of character development, just tiny. And I remember, like, for example, you had Tekken, 1, 2, 5 to 8, and we were out, and you're like, oh, Tekken 4, brilliant. I'm like, what? You've got like Tekken 7 and 8. Why are you buying 4? And you're like,
I think
I need to complete it.
I remember that.
The complete.
I finally got a PlayStation, and the first one of the games I got was Tekken 2, and then Tekken 3 came out not long after that. So bought Tekken 3, but then found Tekken 1 in a bargain bin. I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy the first one because I want to see how that worked.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't,
right.
it was awful. It was absolutely awful because it doesn't work the same way. But yeah, you're right.
You
It
just
did
need
have
to know.
Yeah.
So I feel like, listeners, don't skip this one. Because A, it's like I said, it's really short and it's a really quick read. B, there's a like if you don't like it, but everyone's telling you like the later ones, maybe then you can jump like literally Google.
Yeah, you're right.
Figure out what you might like. I get there's literally different lists. Like if you think you like police group, like bumbling group, then you'll like the Watch. If you like the witches, if you like the sorcerers, there's literally different reading lists. In my experience, I think I'm a fan of the wizards more than anyone else. But like I said, I've only read like a good handful, but a handful.
I thought I'd like the wizards considerably when I first started reading, and I'd played the games and stuff, and I thought, oh, I'd like to see their stories. And it turns the wizards themselves are just really like, it's like a boring old man's club. They really
they're
are
not very powerful,
which is quite funny, and on their limitations, they're not like all powerful beings or anything that can, like you said, they learn a few spells, but if they use one, they forget it and have to relearn it.
Right.
So it's not like they're perfectly, whereas the witch books, I prefer those. They're a lot of fun because they don't just wander around making spells. The magic that happens in their stuff is almost like world magic. It's like general knowledge. I think if you think like Gandalf, where he knows how to, he wanders around.
It's less academic. It's more like the equivalent of the arts than the philosophy.
Yeah, essentially, it's almost like they're like I think if you're thinking of like, is it like wartime midwives, that kind of thing, or where they used to walk within the community and they used to do, it's that kind of thing where the community have a witch that they go to for help, and they just got knowledge that these
sort of like
people
the
from
village elder stroke witch
doctor.
Yeah,
it's exactly. It's like it's like the village people are all like, oh my god, this is happening, what's going on? And they're like, no, take this and take this and take this, and they walk away, and it's like, yeah, they've just got a headache. But they think the devil's trying to dig into their brain, but the witches have got like this normal knowledge that's just like, yeah, we're just gonna, they present it in a way that they can accept. So that's why it's quite fun. They have got magic in theirs as well, but it's just a completely different story set.
I feel like from memory, they're sort of one of the most capable groups. Like the wizards are idiots. Death is just sort of like disattached. He's just he's always like curious as why people are doing this and that. Like he's like an alien from another world who's just not lonely. Well, I mean, maybe lonely. I don't remember Reaper Man, but he's just of his own and the only one. And the witches, from what I remember, were quite capable.
Yes, they were. It's the there's the one that shows that the most, I think, is called Sorcery, I think.
Oh, okay. That's not.
There's one book that's got essentially. I might have that mixed up, but there's one of them is about the wizards or something. And
is it equal? Like there's a female wizard.
Oh, Equal Rights.
Equal Rights.
That's it. Yes, it's Equal Rights. That's the one.
She counts as a witch or not.
No, that's right, because she's like
the seventh son of
a
the
wizard,
seventh son of the seventh son 7 times over. It's going to be the most powerful
wizard. To be a daughter,
and it's a daughter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it was a daughter, so and it was like the wizards won't accept her because she's a girl, and women don't join it, but the witches are in it because they basically sort it out. Sorcery was a wizard's one, and that was, I vaguely remember it, but it was one that's kind of, it was less in my radar. I definitely preferred the other books and the Watch books. I like those a lot.
Yeah, so this book does end on a literal cliffhanger. I try not to spoil it, but it is like a 50-year-old book, 40. Jesus, I'm showing my age. 30-year-old book, 40. I would say mid-80s, maybe.
I can't remember. That's what I mean. I'm for some reason the year 1988 comes to mind, but I can't remember.
Very easily Google it.
That's what I was just going to do.
No,
it was 1983.
Oh, okay. Early 80s.
Yeah. Me thinking it was like 88. Nope, 83.
It makes sense because I remember being in school, and although not hundreds like there are now, but at least like 5 or 6 on the shelves.
Yeah.
Just grabbing them to look at that artwork again, like those beautiful wraparound covers that were just like a scene captured and crazy
Yeah.
colorful, and like we said, gnarly. Such a cool cover. I mean,
Yes.
I can understand why people would repackage things for new generations, but I would always want that older cover.
Yeah. No, I like those. I did like those covers. I like the new drawing. I say the new drawings. I like the new guy that did the later books as well. I
I
don't
guess they're
see
more
why.
friendly, illustrative.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that some of the redesigns of the books are worth it because,
I guess I've
well,
seen loads.
almost.
I've seen they've done these nice, like almost cloth bound hardbacks with a really
Oh yeah,
neon color, and it's a very simple outline illustration, but they look quite striking and nice. Like if I had an infinite
see,
bookshelf and
that's
funds,
different
I'd
though,
like to
isn't it?
collect that as
That's for
well.
like that's a special edition type thing, isn't it? Where they've done the leather bound and the
Kinda, but I
it's
still think they're inexpensive. Like that, I've always seen these books as
yeah,
like they kind of made them as cheap as possible in a good way. I guess that's why they do kids'
yes,
books. But I've
yeah,
seen some pretty naff, not naff, but just like here's just a picture of like a golden ring, like
yeah,
just sort of like dark, like the adult. If you remember when Harry Potter was at his height, like they were like the adult book covers
yeah. I think I've got them, the hardback
version.
ones, and they were
Right,
black
right. Just
covers
that,
with
like, just
yeah,
like a photo of like a table of like a medieval feast or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it was very simple, black and white sort of. Yeah, and it's yeah. While that might look nice on your shelf, I guess it kind of again it works for them because I don't think their original illustrations were iconic. I
No,
feel
the
like I
originals.
thought no, not
I guess
not
it's
the
just what I'm used
original.
to and what pulled me in as a child.
Sorry,
Like,
no, the Harry Potter ones. I mean,
oh,
their original covers aren't exactly iconic. The Terry Pratchett look is iconic,
right, right,
I would
right.
say.
That
So
people
I
would
feel
recognize
like
it without knowing what it is, that
yeah,
thing from their
that's the thing.
childhood.
Yeah, I feel like that's the Terry Pratchett stuff is because I think the Harry Potter books look like the kind of drawings you'd get on the cover of a when you were learning to read at school, like Biff and Chip.
Yeah, I guess just kind of
Maybe not quite that crass, but
typical kids cover. Yeah, like
looked like it was drawn
um
with watercolors or coloring
yeah, yeah,
pencils. It was
fine
that sort
enough,
of
but
very
not like
yeah, it was simple
exactly
enough.
that the
There was no
covers of Terry.
stylized to it. It was
Like the cover
yeah,
was never going to pull me in on that one.
yeah. No. Which is like you say, it's just yes. Whereas like yeah, I think changing the covers that do have an iconic look, there's no point.
Mm.
Unless, of course, like you say, they do a hardbound edition and they want to do something special for it. That's different because it's a collector's thing or something nice. But if the like the general paperbacks,
It's
they
just a
shouldn't.
money grab.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
um,
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's they're redoing the covers so that people want to buy them because it makes they go, oh, I've not seen that before. Yes, you
mm,
have. You just don't recognize the cover.
and I wonder if like there's an attempt at kind of hitting the nostalgia market a bit. Like, okay, so if this came, if they they can probably pinpoint when the series hit a good height in, let's say, that
Yeah,
early mid 90s when I
yeah,
guess that's when things kind of came up and running. It's like they can figure out how old that audience roughly is now, and they can
yeah,
kind of remarket it to them as like a nostalgia thing, if that makes sense, potentially.
yeah. Makes sense.
I don't know. This is the second time I've read this one now. The first time a long time ago. I honestly
Hmm.
didn't remember any of the middle. It has
No,
some great.
I remembered it as I was reading it, but I didn't remember it before that. And
Mm,
there are bits that I really enjoy in the middle of every section, but I think this you are right. Some of those sections as a whole do drag on a little bit,
mm.
but yeah,
It is still crammed with these lovely ideas. Like there's a great
yes,
there's like a I think at one point Rincewind finds like a really brave sword,
oh yeah,
and the sword
it's
kind of leads him, and he's trying to get out of fights, but it's like
yeah,
the sword is braver than him. There's
yeah,
a cracking. I think my favorite joke is just when Tufao explains insurance to like a barman
yeah,
who
insurance,
doesn't not quite understanding it,
yeah,
purposefully burns his bar down, just thinking he's going to get
yeah,
money for burning his bar down,
yeah,
and starts like
yeah,
the Great Fire of Ankh-Morpork or something.
yeah.
It's lovely.
Again, yeah, that's that.
Um,
I love that because yeah, they go so to explain it. So it's like a bet then. I'm
right,
betting
right.
you that you're betting me that the pub won't burn down, and I'm betting you that it will. And if I win, I get money. So when you put it like that, you knew full well he was just going to go and set a light to it the second something happened.
I guess it's that thing of like there's just gold in his writing, if not his story at this early juncture.
There's definitely, there's definitely like loads of sentences and phrases and little sections or interactions in it that I just love the way they play out. There's some real gold there, but yeah, I know what you mean, and that's why I think again the stories that stand out more are the ones that, because they all have that, but I think the ones I like the most are the ones that the story is just sort of perfect as well. That's the ones that stand out more.
I guess going forward, from what I remember about some of the latter ones I've read, like he gets more serious with the threat, and
yeah, he does on some of them.
I think the BBC Radio have done some great radio plays of a bunch of them, which I'm a huge fan of. And there's one of The Watch, and I think like Sam Vines has to go back in time and look after his younger self. And I just remember at least this interpretation of it, like the plot and the key characters take it all very seriously because it's life and death. Whereas in this early one, I don't know, it's more everything's like death is played for jokes all along the way.
Yeah, and I think the reason they do that is because the wizards can see death, so there's the interaction with Rincewind and death, whereas nobody else can see him, only wizards. I think, and I don't know where the witches can. I can't remember that,
but just that the very story itself in this one doesn't seem to take itself seriously at any point.
No,
it's very higgledy-piggledy, whereas in the latter ones it's like there's no jokes around certain issues, so we take them seriously. It's like the anti-Marvel. If you're going to joke about this to an extent, the edge is taken off.
Sometimes he does make the jokes over some of the serious matters, the matters you're supposed to be serious about, but he's changed the tone in that they're quite dry, or they're like everything is really serious, but then there's like a one line at the end that's like a half where you can go, nah.
Yeah, because there's a term for it in sitcoms, like the candy end or something like that, or the coffee sweetener. It's like if you're going to have a really serious, deadly moment, it's really nice to have in a sitcom, but it's always just, I think, just puncture it with a joke at the end to bring our audience back a little bit. I guess Marvel got kind of famous-ish for it and then took it too far. Of like, let the moment sink in. Because my overall feelings are like, when I'm reading these books, I'm enjoying it, but it's someone else's ride, and I'm enjoying it, but it never feels like my ride. It always feels like there's a group that's a fan base who are loving it, and who are like, no, you'd like a certain sense of you just haven't read the right ones, you're not getting it. I always feel like I'm on the outside of that, even though I'm enjoying it. Like this one, it's not my favorite. It's not a great book, but it is still enjoyable. It is some chuckles worth of read, and if nothing else, just to know, like, it's Terry Pratchett who did 40, 50 of these. Like, just see where he started, like,
I do know what you mean with that, because I think, because I really like, Terry Pratchett books, yes, I love them. I'll say that, but then what you've said there about, there's all these people saying, oh, you've not read the right books. And actually, I think what it is because I've read maybe a few where I like, say I've read 40 books and I've really liked 10 of them. I could safely say I really enjoyed 10 of them at least.
Right.
So because there's such a heavy amount I really like, I do like his books as a whole. But then I think if I go, well, actually, I wouldn't read that one again, or that one again, or that one again. But I really enjoy like these ones. So
there's
blanketing it as blanketing it as saying I love all his books, or I love everything he's done. It's almost like but do you really, have you thought about it, or is it because you've liked so many of them, you think you like them all, and you've not quite remembered that there was one or two that didn't quite grab you?
It's
because out of all of that's going to happen to everyone. They're not everyone can love every single book from one person.
I remember really looking forward to Moving Pictures, because that's quite an early one. I work in the film industry, and I found it really boring. I really didn't like Moving Pictures.
There were definitely bits I liked. I think the problem with that one is there's a few in jokes where you have to know what they're referencing, and a lot of the jokes in that, I think, reference like actors like Laurence Olivier or
Yeah, a lot of silver screen stuff.
there's a lot of that where if you don't know the reference, you're going to completely miss it. Or the similarities, a bit like I think with the other books, with like when you said Samuel Vimes going back in time to make sure he himself stays alive because of this, that, and the other. There's a lot of Back to the Future and other influences in that. There's definitely
play on what we know, if we know.
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely a bit of that going in it. I think there was one of them has a little bit. You can sort of see Demolition Man in one of them.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's yeah, and if not that, you can definitely feel think it, even if he didn't. It's one of those common links that I think is in a few films that's in there, and it's just obvious that you can tell when that sort of times they were written.
Nice.
Definitely.
It's odd that, let's say I've read 9 or 10. Like I do want to have read them all. I don't know why. I guess to be part of that select group who can say, yes, I did it all. But I guess it comes down to, like we were saying, like, do I like everything he's done? No. But do I appreciate everything he's done? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just done something that is seemingly very unique in the book world. I can't think of many. Obviously, there's lots of world building out there, but just with this sort of like sharp, absurd humor, this sort of disconnecting from each different book. Like we said, you don't have to have read. You could probably start anywhere and get something out of it, even if you feel like, oh, I'm sort of missing this setup. It's like, okay, but you probably read it in reverse order and take it as a prequel.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed it, you'll get the kick out of it and have a
you are right. Actually, if you
something.
could read any book in any order, actually, some of them work better if you read them in the correct order. But yeah, they do work individually. I think it's where some of the characters, there's one or two characters are introduced that you kind of have to know about them from a previous book to understand something in the next book.
Yeah, so there's certainly consistent characters. No, the librarian ape.
Yeah,
I think I've heard at least Rincewind is in and out a bit. I don't think he ever. Yeah,
Rincewind.
Too many again, but
so many people think of him as like the quintessential character from the Discworld books, but I think he only appears in about 3.
Yeah,
or 4. It's something like that. And there was a thing, and people say, yeah, actually,
I guess because of the game, maybe because of just those early books, because it was sort of, I'm guessing around the time, the 80s, it was like, you should get into Discworld, and let's say by the mid 90s, there wasn't a 40. You probably weren't saying skip the first 2, jump to 3 or 4 or 5. It was probably just you should just read the Discworld, and so everyone was starting there, and everyone kind of remembers the earlier few sometimes, because a lot of people probably didn't read everything that came out. So everyone who probably tried to start from the beginning is just going to remember that.
I think as well with that, if you liked them enough to want to try and read the next one because you think the next one might be better, or you want to see where it goes, because you might think, okay, maybe this, if you thought about it, you go, okay, I read a book, I quite enjoyed it, I have possibly think there's better out there, but maybe the next one or two, maybe I'll find, maybe this will be like, it will do this, and this book is sort of here, and the others will all be up here, and it's just just unlucky that one book didn't quite click with you.
Right.
But it's, you kind of have to think about that, and that's the sort of thing with hindsight. I'm not entirely sure I do that with anything. If I don't quite enjoy it, so I think sometimes when you're watching like a TV series, you can watch one and go, I've watched so many series where you have to watch at least 4 episodes for it to make you know whether you want to watch it or not, because there's it's almost like the introduction, the first 2 or 3, to get you into who these people are.
I feel like, especially with comedies, because more often than not, it's finding the swing of the characters is what becomes really enjoyable, and it can just take a few episodes to go, that guy's hilarious, he's really sarky. At the beginning they were all just making jokes and it was a blur of like characters. Now I sort of understand this character more. I don't know if you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I remember having a big distaste, just coming in when my partner was watching it, and having a big distaste for Gina because she's so just blunt and brutal and rude. Because you just don't know, and she's all of those things. But the more you get to know the character, the more it's just like, you just sort of go, that's Gina, and it's there's payoff in knowing the characters and knowing their style of comedy, of what, like Friends is the prime example of just like, once you figure out, okay, Chandler's going to make a zinging, cutting one-liner at someone's worst moment, and you know, Phoebe's going to say something zany, which is just out of left field. You know, like, not the predictability of jokes, but the just knowing where someone's coming from.
Yeah.
To pay off when you know where they are.
Yeah, and you understand why they're saying that, or just immediately go, yep, that's that character.
I guess I am going to give this book a thumbs up, but just because it's like, this is just where it started, people. It's just you know what I mean. It's like the Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's like if it's like you've got to read Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah, but just it started with the Hobbit. So just you know, if you can skip it, but it's like this. If it's your bag, you're just going to have to go back and read it anyway. I guess, like I was saying, everyone always says, "Oh, you should read it," but don't read that first one. What they're saying is, don't be put off by it if you don't like it.
Yeah. That's probably a better phrasing, isn't it? You don't need to read the first one. People don't necessarily. I know you're going to, but don't get put off by it if you don't quite click with it. The other ones are better, or it just gets better from there. That's generally that's a good way of thinking with that one. It is a starting point, and you sort of hits stride, and by book like 15 onwards, it definitely.
Oh God, 15! Don't say that. That's going to put people off. Crikey, jeez. Trust me, listener. Get the first 15 just out the way them out. Crikey, 15. I mean, 15 is a lot.
And I'm not got any shares.
That would
in
put me off
either,
if I'm honest.
So. I think you hit stride by book 40, so you have to get every other book.
The last one's good.
Yeah, but you have to have read all the others to get it, to understand it.
Sam, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you? You have like an art Twitter, am I right?
I've got an Instagram which is a bit of a mishmash, but that's Millsy1982.
Nice. Thank you for coming on the show. And so obviously we're going to try and do. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.